We're just cute like that.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
Jackie, what are you wearing?
Can somebody write this down?
Okay, me too.
We're all good to
I
go.
was thinking Fender. Fender it is.
Fender shirt and
And
shorts.
we usually wear
Okay,
pink
we're-
on Wednesdays.
Okay, hello, good morning, good afternoon, all those things. Okay, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. Let's see, at this time, individuals wishing to address the city council are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver a card to the city clerk at the other end of the table. Prior to the item being heard by the city council, please observe a 3-minute limit for communications. Once called upon to speak, we request that you state your name and city of residence for the record. There is a revision to the agenda. Item 1, there was a revision made to the presentation. So we are going to first go to communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment only on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, we request that you state your name and city of residence for the record. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Here, yes, there's one speaker.
Outstanding. I love speakers. Not just because it's part of my name.
I don't have a card filled out.
That's all right.
I was looking.
Mr. Fuller, welcome.
You wanna all wait while I throw
No,
out?
you're good.
I have a simple question.
Love questions.
I wanna know what a citizen may do to get something on the agenda. What's the procedure I have to do to get something on the agenda?
Talk to a council member and see if they have an interest in putting it on the agenda.
Oh, so I have to run for office and get elected?
No. No, you
You
just need to
ask one
talk
of
to a
us.
council.
Don, let's
put it on
for you.
So I can give, so if I could talk one of those 5 charming, lovely,
Yes.
Only one
We
of
know who
them's
you're talking
lovely.
about now.
Absolutely. Yes.
Only
Put it on
one
Jackie
lovely.
anytime you want.
they might not wanna do that.
That's true.
Then you go to another
Then you have to run.
No,
Then you have to
Then you
run.
go to another one.
Okay,
All right.
What's the issue?
okay.
All
What?
right.
Was there a question?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in case he doesn't wanna bring it up, I believe the issue was, he wanted to bring something up that wasn't necessarily going to be super gigantically politically politically.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
correct or popular or whatever.
You can bring it to
So-
Wes.
And so I mean,
Those go to Wes.
yeah, I mean, he's raising an interesting point, you know, I mean, do the citizens have any role at a city council meeting? Do they have any role in shaping the agenda, or do they, you know, the only way something's gonna happen is if somebody decides up there that, you know, that doesn't work for them, you know, and seems like an existential question.
Shall I make it easier to tell you what I wanna do?
That'd be nice.
And what I wanna do is delete the invocation from council meetings. I think we should do without the invocation. I think we should just dump it. But I realize that it's politically unpopular. And I realize that if that was to happen, every single one of you would get your email inbox full of messages saying, if you do this, I'm never gonna vote for you again. So that's what I'd like to do. And I realize that I would not expect any one of the 5 of you to put yourself out on the hell mail. So that's what it was.
Okay. We're not allowed to discuss your item, but thank you.
Can I make a point on that? I'm sorry, but I would
May not.
agree in the fact that
Not really.
it's a public meeting. It should be a non-denominational invocation, and it rarely is. And I find that to be highly annoying.
Okay.
So
Okay.
thank you for
Thank
bringing
you.
that up.
Thank you for your comments.
So anyway,
I appreciate it.
That's what it was.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So let's see, we're gonna go to our first item, and one of the things that the mayor can do is reorganize the agenda. See, Tony?
We'll exercise that
Okay,
power.
get ready to do here. So we're gonna go to item number 4 first, and which is the park ranger program. Not just because it sounds cool, because I like it. So we're gonna go to Moses Cortez, Facilities, Parks and Trails Manager, and he will present a report.
Warden, good morning, Warden.
I'm waiting
I
for
can't
the
call
day
him
when
warden
you
until he
throw
wears
on
the
your
hat.
I'm a
Yeah,
ranger today, so.
he's a ranger today.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Great.
So we just wanted to come back to you guys and provide an update on the Ranger program. It's been a few months now since we spoke about it, and since then a lot of fun things have happened. So we'll just jump right into it. Hopefully the clicker works. Or not.
Did you rearrange the clicker too?
Yeah, everything.
Every time I use it, like it doesn't work for me.
Never works the first time.
No, it's a glitch. Slash doesn't get tested. Should be a checklist.
Turn you into a diabetic, yeah.
So quick overview of our Ranger program. It consists of our full-time Ranger supervisor, which is she's actually seated behind me. And she'll be here. She'll be at leadership next week. We also have our full-time senior Ranger. She's been on board now for probably about 4 or 5 months. Lexi. We have a full-time senior Ranger, a part-time senior Ranger. And their primary role is to alternate with the other senior Ranger. They basically cover the weekends. So they're the ones that are going to be covering the Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift. And then we have four part-time Rangers, which we consider our field Rangers. And they're the ones that are out doing a lot of patrols and responding to calls. We have 3 park Ranger trucks that are fully wrapped. They're Ford Rangers, and they are clearly identifiable. Rangers for the Rangers. Figure that fit. They have the light bars, toolboxes, and everything, so they're clearly identifiable as they're cruising through the parks, on the trails and stuff. We have a ranger station located on the 2nd floor in the community services suite. So that's where they have their computers. They come in, grab their radios, keys. They do their shift reports, those things. And the coolest thing about it is it's got this really cool sign above it with like the trees on the side. So it's really cool, yeah. We do provide coverage 7 days a week. The hours do vary based on our peak usage, holidays, weekends, things along those lines, volunteer events. So we do shift the hours based on those demands.
Well, just really quick, I'm sorry, did you
Yeah.
say that we're fully staffed?
We're actually gonna bring on another ranger, so it'll actually be 5. We actually have a bank of hours is what we have. So we base off a bank of hours. Right now we have 4 part-time rangers. We're gonna take it up to 5 based on that bank.
Thank you. Moses, is the bank large enough to
We,
accomplish what we want to get done?
it is, so I will come back to you guys and let you know. I'd like to come back, after about a full year's worth of data. And we're collecting all the data right now in PD's CAD system, so we're able to see how many calls for service we have, and then come back and see if we need to make any adjustments.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So where will you see our rangers? You'll see them, obviously in our parks. They're gonna be just cruising to the parks. They'll be patrolling the parking lots. You're gonna see them on the trails. Yesterday, they actually met up with the U.S. Forest Service and went all the way up to the Doppler. They got a lot of information kind of on the background of Skyline, who's responsible for what, along the maintenance, where you go into private property, and they went all the way up the road, spent a few hours with the U.S. Forest Service. So that'll help us provide that information to our patrons that are on the parks, especially right now, on the trails, especially with us doing the Trails Master Plan. You'll also see them in our open space, like Sage Open Space, our green belts, Mountain Gate Green Belt, Bowie Green Belt. They'll be patrolling those areas, watching for people off, dogs off leashes, just greeting residents during summer. They'll be passing out bottles of water and junior ranger stickers, just making sure everybody's having a good and safe time. They'll be at our special events like 4th of July, our holiday lighting, Halloween weekend. So they'll be at all our special events, not just providing presents, but also helping out with logistical support, running booths, cleaning up, stocking bathrooms, those things. And then they're also actively involved in our volunteer events, like our tree planting, our community cleanups. So we have one this weekend actually, and the Rangers will be there helping out with putting some trees on the ground. So if you need to contact a park ranger, you would want to contact the non-emergency number, which I was supposed to put on here, I believe. So it's
2330, option 6.
Option 3. So you would go through the non-emergency number, and then based on the demand for the call, they would decipher if it needs to go to a officer or if it'll go to a park ranger. We all operate on the same radio system, so we're able to just hear what's going on, and they're able to communicate effectively with dispatch on those issues. So what does a park ranger do? They are out greeting our visitors, just interacting with people. They'll stop at the playgrounds, they'll stop at the picnic shelters, and just greet visitors. They'll interact with our park users. Our biggest park users are gonna be our sports groups. So they're engaging with them. They're actually gonna be at our next field allocation meeting. So that way, all of our leagues can put a name to the face.
Okay.
And kind of know who to look for and how to get a hold of them. We're gonna give them this same information so they know when they have road use and things like that, how to get a hold of them. Other times, they're just doing their patrols through the parks. They're going through, just making sure, people aren't just, hanging out, loitering, doing nefarious things in the parks. They educate our park users on the rules, and how to take care of our parks, what's allowed, what's not allowed, enforcing park hours, municipal codes, things along those lines. They'll help out with light duty maintenance, so if there's a back-to-back picnic shelter, they're the ones that are gonna come in between, after maintenance has already done the initial cleanup, and they'll change out the trash liners, make sure that the park picnic shelter is ready for the next party coming in. They'll assist the residents if they come up to them and ask them a question. They keep the citizens guides in their truck, so that way if somebody has a general question about how to get a hold of somebody or who we should call for that, they'll report graffiti, things along those lines. The other nice thing is we distribute dog leashes. If we see a dog that's off a leash, ACO has been kind enough to give us dog leashes. So if we see a dog off a leash or in a ball field, somebody decides that's their own personal dog park, they'll hand out a dog leash and just let them know that the dog does need to be on a leash. And as I mentioned, they work with all our sports leagues. That's a really big role for them, and it's a really good tool for the leagues.
Great.
Some of our success stories since then that kind of stick out in our mind. Victoria Park, we had a meeting with the Victoria Park folks, the residents around there, probably about a year ago. And one of the concerns they had was just a lot of people hanging out there, doing drugs, hanging out, working on their cars. Just not really an activity that we'd want to see in the park. We did do some upgrades to the park that were, include lighting and signage and things along those lines. But our rangers have been there on a very, very regular basis, and we've deterred a lot of that activity. And we've got a lot of positive feedback from the residents. They've emailed to us saying thank you. It's nice to see the rangers here. On Easter, I guess the park was fully packed with people just doing what they're supposed to be doing in the park. Mother's Day, I guess there's a bunch of people picnicking, so we just keep getting tons of good feedback.
Awesome.
So it's really, really cool to hear. We also had our tree planting event at Victoria Park last month, and we had somebody come through and decide to start snapping all the tree stakes. All the trees were laying on their side. Somebody called it in, the rangers showed up and actually located the individual, was able to call on the radio, and the Hope team showed up there within a couple minutes and arrested the person. So it's been really good. Griffin Park, we had a resident across the street. Same thing, there was people hanging out up the top of the parking lots, doing drugs, smoking weed. Reached out to us, asked what we could do. So we had the rangers hanging out, posting out up there with their lights on, just making it uncomfortable for them. And they have since left. Another thing we got back from those residents over there, just really, really happy to see that we were able to dispatch them there. Buena Vista Park Graffiti, that was an internal thing that our maintenance staff kept noticing that every day between these time frames, they kept getting hit on graffiti. Ranger sat there, saw when the person came in, realized they were the ones doing the tagging, got a hold of dispatch to the radio again, and they arrested the individual for that as well. And we were able to collect restitution on that. And then
That makes me so happy.
yeah, that's true. And then another cool story at Buena Vista Park, kind of a feel-good story, and this kind of really lays into the education piece. On the day of spring break, as school got out, somebody showed up there with cake and food and barbecue and everything, and they did have the bounce houses. They had a couple bounce houses and the water slide and everything. Wasn't permitted. Rangers rolled up and were like, hey, you guys have a permit? And they're like, no, we don't have a permit. And they're like, okay, well, we don't want to kill your vibe. All the kids are having fun. Nobody has this picnic shelter reserved for the afternoon, so we're going to go and let you continue on with your party. But we are gonna ask you to unplug the bounce houses just because of the liability issue. And people were very understanding. They were able to pass out the information on how to obtain a permit and where to call. So the next time that they do have that kind of party, they know what to do. So what's next for our park rangers? So we'll be having some different types of education days with our rangers, where they're out with the public and the youth, just providing different types of education. We're gonna be doing reading with the ranger at the library. So during summer, they'll have reading days with the rangers. We're gonna be joining the On The Go out in our parks, so the rangers will be participating with that, with the crafts and the different events that On The Go hosts. We'll be doing volunteer-led hikes, so we're setting that up. We've got the foundation work laid for that, and in these volunteer-led hikes, they're actually gonna educate volunteers that wanna take folks up onto our trail system, and they'll be giving them the information on what to do and what to look for. Some of the cool things that we're putting together, there's apps available out there that will actually identify, and when they go out for the hike, they'll receive this information and they can download the app ahead of time. And they'll be able to identify the types of plants and stuff that they'll notice on the trail. Also the animals that'll be native in our backcountry here, so they'll be able to learn all about the education on the flora and the fauna. They're very involved with the trails master plan, community engagement. They're gonna be the ones knocking on doors, passing out the door hangers, greeting folks, taking surveys up on the trails. And we're also working with our neighboring communities, OC Parks, Riverside County Parks. And we're trying to reach out to Eastvale and the city of Riverside to do some collaborative ranger field days, to make sure that, you know, our messages are kind of consistent. We're seeing the same homelessness issues. What are they dealing with? What are programs that they're implementing that we could implement? And just to kind of piggyback off one another. So we'll be working on setting that up.
Moses, the Riverside has rangers, but does any other city have rangers?
Riverside does, and so does Riverside County.
Riverside County?
Yeah, and they have a really big ranger program, so does OC Parks.
Okay.
And that concludes my presentation. It's kind of a feel-good, just report. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, I don't have any questions. I just already asked you, so let us know. What do you need?
Cool report.
I was curious about how the program had been going so far. And I'm happy to hear that, you know, we're basically fully staffed and it's been productive so far.
Yeah.
The one thing I wonder, and it's mostly a comment, I know that when we were considering the park ranger program, one of the big incentives, the things that I was really excited about was deterring illegal and nefarious activity. And so it seems like, you know, we're filling up with all sorts of really big things, but is the focus still trying to ensure that the parks are being used the way the parks should be used?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. So they're going and making sure that, you know, people are hanging out in the dugouts drinking, people
Yeah.
are hanging out in the parking lots, doing all those nefarious acts and kind of squashing that.
Okay. And I look forward to seeing the progress in the year and seeing how much, you know, how many calls for service, because I feel like a lot of the calls that come in, a lot of the complaints that we get, they aren't necessarily like emergency, like 911 emergencies, but it's fitting for a park ranger. So I want to see how many calls.
Yeah, and I'd love to come back and tell you guys how successful the program's going and have some more stories to
And what
share.
type of calls.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Moses. I was kind of curious about the coverage. You said that they're 7 day a week. Do we have overnight coverage from the Rangers?
We don't have overnight. Right now, we're up until about the evening, and that's just purely for safety reasons. As the program goes, we can explore those options, but really for them to be out late, they would need to be in pairs. And usually after 9, 10 o'clock, there's nothing good going on in the park anyways.
What nefarious activity?
You want a police officer there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you had talked about they were on some of our trail system with the Forest Service. Do they have access to the trails without Forest Service?
At this point, we have just access through a Knox key, but we don't have, and then we can utilize the keys from U.S. Forest Service. So yesterday, we coordinated with them. They opened the gate for us, and we were able to drive up with them.
Okay.
But we could have opened it ourselves with the knob.
With the Knox, yeah.
Okay.
Firefighters at
Cops too, in park ranger.
And I was gonna ask, you kind of cut me off to the point about the having to call in PD. I'm so excited that they were able to catch people in the act and, you know, make an arrest and kind of go from there. that was it for me.
I
Thank you,
have one
Ruth.
more question I forgot to ask.
Yes.
Can our rangers, give citations?
They can, so they have the PC 832, and we've actually have the citation books that we received from PD, so they can write an administrative citation and also a parking ticket for people parking in like handicap or red zones or whatever.
Perfect, thank you.
Connie?
Oh, you read my mind. I didn't even. What are the qualifications to become a park ranger?
Well, we'd actually like to we're working with the surrounding agencies to put together more like a ranger academy. But right now, we're seeing a lot of people that, it's kind of like a footprint or a stepping stone into law enforcement. We're seeing people that have a background in that, or they have like environmental science background. One of our rangers that is with us, he has a ton of background in like botany and flora and fauna and stuff. So he's really involved in the environmental science part of it. So that's kind of the folks that we're seeing.
What's his name again?
Don't tell him.
Wesby.
He's gonna try to steal our employees.
Third job.
Yeah, no, I need to.
I have one follow-up question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You had talked about the situation where that family had a party and it wasn't unpermitted and they were able to let them continue on, but do they have the ability to issue a permit right then and there? You had said they had to unplug their bounce house, but if they would have had a permit, could they have kept their bounce house up?
If they had their permit, they could have, yes.
So can we issue permits on the spot?
We're working on putting something together like that. It gets a little trickier when you have like Taco Guy and the bounce houses.
Right.
Just because of the insurances.
Right.
But we'd like to be able to get to a point where on their iPad, they could like, if they show up and somebody's like, you're like, hey, we see that you don't have a permit and nobody's reserved this for the rest of the day, so we could issue a permit right then on their iPad.
Yeah.
So we're working on getting that.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Weber.
I think the most important takeaway that you should have is that doing all the walking and volunteering that I've done in the parks, the major complaint that I get from the residents, the leagues, anybody that I come across is that there's no ability to enforce anything, so why should I even bother to call? So now with the ability to have a set of rules that's enforceable and a pair of eyes to act on it, it's gonna make all the difference in the world. And you'll see the calls for service go in because the leagues don't call. What they do is complain after the fact at their quarterly meeting to Moses about having to chase people around because they know he can't be there and there's no enforcement.
Right.
So I had a Boy Scout parent come to me 2 weeks ago wanting to do their Boy Scout project selling things at the baseball games, and I'm like, okay, well, that's against the municipal code. Yeah, but nothing will happen. I mean, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, there's a park ranger there that'll do something, so let's not set that example for your Boy Scout troop. And it's just a matter of the fact that there's someone there that could educate the parents and the kids and move that process along without it being something that people are then contacting you or me saying, hey, this thing was going on that shouldn't have been going on. Now we have the tools to make a difference, and I think that that's what you're gonna see out of this program. It's not just the deterrent factor of it, it's the factor that the community will get educated on what needs to be done and how to go about doing it, and collectively, we'll start taking care of our parks collectively. They kind of set the example and set the tone for us.
Cool.
That's my pitch.
Yeah, it's a lot of education, it's fun.
Great presentation. This is something that we've all wanted for a long time, and I agree with Ms. Wentworth that I think that the education part's really important. I would like to hear a little bit more at some point about how we can do the permit stuff online. It would be really cool to be able to, I know that, if they weren't able to have their, insurance certificate, that they could purchase something through us, they could still have their deal, and we're not ruining somebody's birthday party,
Are
so.
we gonna invest in, I thought we were gonna invest in signage, that was more signage in the parks, because we were talking about the sign program, like what we want our signs to look like. And so when you come up to a picnic shelter and you're planning your family reunion there, right now, there's nothing that'll tell you you really need to get a permit, nothing super obvious about where to call, what to do. And with the sign program and improving the information at our parks for our park users, that's something that when you go up to the picnic shelter, it should be fairly obvious that if you're having an organized event with more than so many people, you need to get a permit. And here's how to do it. You can get on your phone right now and call. So I kind of see that as where the staff is
The
going.
next phase.
QR code.
Are people to vote permits?
Do people get permits? Yeah, a lot of people actually do, yeah.
Yeah, I see them all the time.
Yeah, they rent them.
Yeah, they rent the picnic shelters, and then we get the reservations, and we go out and post it up.
Well, a large part of the population knows that you're supposed, because I wouldn't have known, I would have just
No,
shown
I
up.
don't think a large part of the population knows.
Some people know, lots of people don't.
Well, I mean, you know how you know is when you go and you go, hey, I'm gonna have a birthday party, and then all of a sudden there's somebody else there.
Yeah.
Or you started your birthday party and somebody goes, hey, I got a permit, you gotta move all your stuff.
Yeah.
That's when I found out.
I've seen a mom move people.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not, I know no one.
And now you have someone to call, it's not just about that poor resident saying, you know, I've got this piece of paper that says I have
Yeah.
to be here, and there's this altercation with this shelter, you know, and a lot of times the staff in the past, they were so short-staffed, they weren't being able to put out the notification on the shelters that there was something else
You could
going
just
on here.
point to the wall.
Right, and pull that paper out of the container, so.
Well, and the park ranger can mediate on that, right?
Exactly. A park ranger can mediate all that, and mostly, even like with the leagues, there's a lot of fighting and arguing that goes on the actual fields with residents and other groups that come from outside. that are-
Abuse,
Yeah, that are fighting with our parents and the coaches and stuff. And that's never something you wanna see, but I've seen it more than I care to, say. And that's something where you just wanna be able to not get involved, call a ranger, and have that third party mediate.
And it helps out a lot too, just to kind of piggyback on that, because the rangers are able to get to those calls relatively quickly. Unfortunately for PD, based on priorities, it frees their officers up to respond to the calls that they need to go to.
That's great.
Yeah.
And people are respecting the rangers, they're,
Oh, yeah. It's a good program.
they
get a lot of-
recognize.
Mhm.
So the other side, you mentioned, and I think the vice mayor just kind of set it up the side that a year might be too long. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was data. I mean, data is important to all of us. We want to know what the interactions are and what they're doing, and it'd be really, really interesting to come back maybe in 6 months to say, okay, you know, what are the majority of calls for? What have been the issues, and then how can you improve upon those things as they come up?
Well, I would say with COVID to take in consideration that everything is getting a much slower start as far as activities and
Sure.
organizations are going. So that may not give you a true read on where Moses is gonna go with this.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would give it a little bit more time.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's fine. Okay, Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards?
Mayor, no, I do not.
Awesome. So we are gonna, thank you very much, sir. We're gonna go on number 2.
Thank you.
Thanks, Moses.
Yep.
Which is update on the city's participation in the National Community Survey. Donna Finch, Assistant to the City Manager, please present the report.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the committee. Hello. So I'm here today to just provide more of an informational update today, a feel-good report on our city's participation in the National Community Survey, which is going to kick off next week. That's perfect. Okay, so I'll start by just providing a little bit of information on what the National Community Survey is. Essentially, it is just a comprehensive community survey that is conducted by local agencies throughout the country. It includes standardized questions that measure quality of life of residents, their satisfaction with the services and the amenities that the community provides. There are over 600 cities that have participated in this survey nationwide, so the data that we will be collecting, because the questions are standardized, will allow us to benchmark our results against these other communities that have participated. So it's going to be a really good opportunity for us to start collecting some of that indicator data that we have in our strategic plan. We've identified several indicators throughout our 6 goals of the strategic plan that just kind of highlight, you know, what our community satisfaction rating is with the different services, but we don't have any data to be able to measure that. So this survey will give us a good majority of that community satisfaction data so we can identify what our baseline level is for the city, as well as identify some potential targets of where we would like to be based off of how we compare to other communities throughout the country.
Awesome.
So the survey format, it will basically be conducted in 2 different formats. The first is a random sample survey that will be mailed out to select households that are geographically spread throughout the community. We provided our GIS data to our partner. The name of the vendor is Polco, that conducts this survey for the communities throughout the country. And they've identified approximately 7,000 households in the city of Corona that they're going to be mailing this survey out to. It's equal equally spread throughout the district, so we're looking at approximately 1,400 households within each district that are going to receive this survey. And we opted for expanded outreach with a guaranteed number of results between 600 and 1,000 results that will be submitted for the random sample survey. So this will give us a margin of error of approximately 3 to 4%, which the lower the margin of error, the higher the confidence level that the survey is representative of our city community. And then the second part of the survey will be an open participation survey. So we're going to have the mail sample survey go out beginning next week, and then that will be open for approximately 1 month. And then on June 20th, we're going to make that open participation survey available online. So this will be open to all Corona residents. They can access the survey through our city website, and it'll be the same exact survey, but we just will have it available online. So the results will be provided in 2 separate reports. The random sample survey will be 1 report. This is the one that is technically statistically valid because we can guarantee that those respondents are city residents. The online survey will still have very valuable data that will be collected from that, but there is no way to really guarantee that it's just Corona residents that are participating in that. So that data will be provided in a second report, but it will still be just as valuable to us. Both surveys will be available in both English and Spanish. And we've also opted for a half page of custom questions that we're adding on to those standardized questions that will allow us to fully capture all of our community satisfaction data in the strategic plan. So the standardized questions captures about 80% of what we have in our strategic plan, and those additional questions will give us the full 100% of the community satisfaction data. And then we're also going to be asking an additional question about residents' interest in online services. So if there's any online services that we're not providing, what would they like to see more of? And then we, again, have opted for custom benchmarks. So in addition to the nationwide benchmarks that we'll have access to, we can also customize who we compare ourselves to. So we'll be looking at cities of similar size, similar demographics, as well as cities within our local region that we'll have the ability to compare ourselves to a little bit more specifically and see exactly how we line up against those. And then the last thing, which I don't have on the PowerPoint, is we will also be collecting the raw survey data. So this will allow us to disaggregate those survey results so we can kind of break it down into smaller clusters of result pools to be able to see how residents within maybe a certain race or demographic group respond as opposed to just getting the full picture of all Corona residents. We can break that down into smaller disaggregated data. So pretty excited about that. So for the survey timeline, I mentioned the survey's kicking off next week. We will actually be starting our informational campaign on the survey this evening, right after this presentation to all of you. So we'll begin with social media posts that will go out on our social media channels beginning this evening, as well as a post on our city website, just advertising that this first wave of the random sample survey will be mailed to Corona residents beginning on May 16th. So May 16th is when that first postcard invitation is going to be sent out in the mail to the random sample participants. It will have a unique link, so each resident that gets that will get their own link to be able to do that particular survey online. Or if they choose to participate in the survey by mail, then on the 23rd, that paper survey will be mailed to those households that receive that postcard. And then I mentioned that's going to be open for 1 month, and then on June 20th is when we're going to start that open participation survey online. And we'll continue to market the survey, both surveys, between the 20th and July 5th with social media posts, our Inner Circle newsletter, online newsletter that will go out, as well as continuing to keep those advertisements on our city website. On July 5th, data collection will close for both surveys. The random sample mail survey as well as the online participation survey will close on the 5th. And then our partner Polko that is conducting the survey for us will analyze the survey results and start to prepare the report between July 6th and July 31st. And then we anticipate receiving our final survey report on August 5th. for staff to go through those results and then prepare a report to present to the city council, which we are anticipating bringing before you on August 17th. So that's kind of the timeline of what we're going to be looking at over the next 2 months to get that survey out and get that data prepared and analyzed and then presented to the city council, and then also put into our strategic plan so we can start getting that baseline and target data for our strategic plan indicators.
Great.
So again, it's just an informational update today. We'll have some more information to present once the survey is finalized and we have that report data, which will come back to you in August. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Do we pay for this?
Yes.
We do, yes.
Not a grant or,
It is not, no.
and do we get to see how we rank against everybody else in the nation, or?
We do, yes. So the results are given to us on kind of a percentile basis. So we'll be able to see for each question where we rank in terms of percentile, whether we're at the 50th, we rank a little bit higher, we rank a little bit lower. The custom benchmark data is the one that we have opted, we paid a little bit extra to get those custom benchmarks, and then that will allow us to see specific cities. So if we want to drill down and say, we want to look at, every city in Southern California that participates, or the cities that are of similar size as us or similar demographics as us, then we can get those more specific comparisons.
Yeah, we wanna beat Norco.
I don't know if Norco participates in this, but we can
rub it
absolutely
in.
look into that.
Well, we're going to regardless anyway, so.
So then participation is optional for cities?
Correct.
How frequently is a survey held?
It's conducted whenever a city signs up for it, so it's not a set time of year. But cities only do the survey one time a year if they sign up, so
Okay.
it just depends.
And then, what's our role in the survey? Is it just partnering with the firm that's conducting it?
Well, they conduct it for us, so we really benefit by being able to receive that data. And our role is, just looking through the standardized questionnaires, adding those optional half page of questions, which we have opted to provide, and then how we use that data, really. So we're using it for our strategic plan. That's kind of where the benefit is for us.
Have we done this in the past?
No.
Not here. The other role that we have is we promote it, so we get the word out so people know about it.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
What were the questions that we added?
So we added, I mentioned we added the question on the digital services. So we added a question asking residents what type of digital services that the city doesn't provide would you like to see? Services that are feasible for our IT department to be able to put into effect. And then the other ones were just a few that were missing. They're included in our strategic plan indicators, but they were missing from the standardized questions. So we just wanted to make sure we capture everything in our strategic plan that is community satisfaction based.
That's clever. In order for us to have the data, in order to drive, to be able to answer after the 5 years of strategic plan to get there, here's some hard data.
Do you have a list by any chance?
Of the actual custom
Yeah.
questions? Sure. Yes, so we asked, let me see, okay, I'm gonna find where the custom ones are. Okay, so, how likely or unlikely are residents, like I mentioned, willing to use the following services, and then for online services, and then we added recreation services, license renewals. Given the chance to start over, how likely or unlikely would you be to choose living in Corona again? How prepared, if at all, do you feel you are in the event of an emergency? And then rating the following services in the Corona community, including public safety efforts, city's efforts to reduce homelessness, places to recreate, socialize, meet, and connect with friends, variety and frequency of community events, and then the rating of our bike lanes. So those were the ones from our strategic plan that were missing.
Those are great. Thank you.
Okay.
When somebody else is paying attention.
Ms. Newman? Any questions, Connie? Michelle? Okay. I just had a couple. One, are the demographics, are they similar or matched for our community, or are they the same for all the communities? Meaning the demographics and who they mail to.
So they literally just choose random addresses. They really
So there's
don't
no
know.
set demographics?
Yeah, it's a random sample, so they don't know the demographics of the people that are receiving the survey until that survey is returned to us, and then we'll get that demographic data.
So with 7,000 going out and we're expecting 600 to 1,000, that's what, 12 to 15% return? That's ambitious.
Yes, they have guaranteed us 600 to 1,000 respondents.
That's great.
so.
I mean,
Of
I
the
think,
random
I think that, Coronal will always rise to the occasion because that's what we do, but that is generally it's a pretty big number as a percentage. I love the idea. I think it's fantastic. I'd love to see, is there a business version of this? Because I would love to find a way to, I mean, I don't know what the cost is.
Not that I'm
total.
aware of through Polko.
But it would be very interesting to see a custom list of things, why businesses come here, why do they stay here? What can the city do better? That sort of thing I think it'd be a very valuable retention indicator.
And I believe our Economic Development Department is collecting some of that data through
Yeah.
their strategic plan efforts. So it's not a formalized survey conducted by this vendor where we would have those benchmarks, but I think some of that data is already being collected as part of the strategic
Okay,
plan, which.
it'd be good to see. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that this vendor need to do it, but it'd be good to collect similar data over time.
We can trend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards?
Mayor, I have one speaker card.
Come on down.
Hi, it's me again.
Hello, sir.
You give great presentations this week. Thank you very much. A couple little things that just occurred to me. I have actually written surveys, and so I know that it's entirely possible. In fact, I've done it. The right questions to get the answers you want. So I suspect that's part of the process of making sure you have good people write the questions, so you get bona fide answers instead of just carving the thing to get the answers you want out of it, because I have done that. And another thing is that we've had surveys before in town over the past few years, and I just wondered if any of those things that come up on the surveys, I wonder what, and probably, I'm sort of making my comment here as I'm going along, but whether or not there's going to be some action following something on a survey would depend heavily upon what the thing is. I mean, for example, maybe people say they would like to have the trees trimmed more promptly. I don't know if that results in people going out and trimming trees more promptly. That's probably a pretty simple one, but you were talking about, Mr. Speak, about, why businesses stay here. That's a more involved, complicated thing to put into action. I didn't know what you put into action for that, right? So I just wonder what kind of things happen from these surveys, if they just end up getting shoveled back there into a file someplace, or, action actually gets taken on things that are actionable, or that are worth having some action, or that are cost effective to have some action, or something. I just wondered if there's a longer term goal like that.
Sure, I think Ms. Finch, if you want to jump in, but I think it's really to measure what we have identified as being our goals as part of our strategic plan. So it's measuring how we're doing on this, the established goals that we have in our strategic plan. It's asking how we're doing in relation to how people feel about those. I mean, we can certainly pull data for what our, how fast our PD is responding or our fire is responding, but it'd be good to understand what people feel about it. Do they think they're getting, that sort of, and I'm harping on one thing, and it's more than that. And the good thing, I think, the thing that really struck me was the fact that it's standardized questions across a broad range. So you'll be able to understand, granted, people that are here versus that are in, Alabama or in, New York are probably going to have a little different feeling on things. But the fact that they're standardized questions, I think, is important.
Yeah, less likely to skew a question to get an answer you want if
Right.
it's the same question here as it is anywhere else.
And I can
Please.
jump onto that a little too. So because we're actually using a lot of this data in our strategic plan, it allows us to measure our performance over time. So our goal is to conduct this survey every year to see if the community satisfaction with the services that we're providing is improving or decreasing. And if we're seeing satisfaction is decreasing, then it could allow us to make adjustments into how we provide our services to make sure that we're continuing to perform to the level that residents would like us to. So I think we're kind of going a little bit further beyond the way other communities use this, and we're actually putting this into our strategic plan and measuring it and tracking it to make sure that we're performing.
It also shows like, just because we think something's important in the strategic plan, we want to know if people are actually seeing it and they're being able to interact with it. So that's really important. The fact that we may think that something is really great and we're investing all this money in, and the public couldn't care less, then maybe that's something that we would talk about.
And this thing, you did a really good job with your comeback, good at thinking on your feet. I know that.
Okay, see, I see it's candy time, and Councilmember Steiner is passing out candy, but it never seems to make it this into the table. That's fine. Okay, so we're on to the next item, which is co-sponsorship request for fiscal year 2023. Jose Correa, Community Services Program Coordinator, and Jason Lass, Recreation Manager, will present the report. Mr. Vice Mayor, since the Corona Historic Preservation Society is one of the groups, even though they're not getting any money, I can't participate in the conversation, so I have to step out.
Does that mean I'm in charge?
You're in charge.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Well, not in charge.
Oh, man.
You're running the meeting.
Please step out.
Step out.
Shut the door. We will come and get you when we're ready for you.
Ranger, can you,
I'm calling the ranger, please.
we need some assistance over here? You might have a bounce house up there.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor, Council. My name is Jose Correa, and I am the Program Coordinator that oversees special events and co-sponsored events with our Community Services Department. And tonight I am here to present to you the requests that were received for the city's co-sponsorship program for fiscal year 2023. So the ask here today is that the Committee of the Whole review and consider the fiscal year 2023 co-sponsorship requests that we did receive. So we'll jump right into the traditional timeline for co-sponsored events, just so you guys can get an idea of kind of how we operate. So in February, applications do become available, so a letter gets sent out with the application to all the past co-sponsored events that we had, as well as it gets posted all on our social media, on our city website, just that anybody in the community, any nonprofits out there are able to apply and see what the requirements will be. So those are available in February. In March, those applications are due at the end of the month. From there, we go ahead and review all throughout the month of April, all the new submissions that came in, all the returning events that came back, and we gather any supporting information, get any additional documentation that we need from any of the groups in April, and then in May, we go ahead and bring the final recommendation to the Committee of the Whole, as we are here today. And then from there, once they are approved, the request will be folded in as part of the city's standard operating budget, which will be approved in the month of June. If necessary, we do have the ability to come back for any mid-year requests that we do receive from any nonprofits. However, the policy does ask that we do come to the Committee of the Whole to get those approved before we proceed with anything. So a little bit history about co-sponsored events, just so we can all be on the same page. So the co-sponsorship is actually intended to facilitate community events that are open to the general public and hosted by local Corona-based nonprofits. And so it's a one-time award in the form of a fee waiver or an in-kind assistance, which could be just using the city logo, putting the flyer into our Corona Connection, which goes out quarterly, or just posting on our social media, just letting the community know what's going on. And then the funds can be used to offset any city fees that may occur, the cost of city services as well that are requested by each of the events, which would normally be charged for any permitted use. More oftentimes than not, it's staff time that gets charged, since that goes into it a lot into each of these events is the staff time that goes into it. And so essentially this is not a subsidy or any grant program in the form of any cash.
And the groups know that.
They do, yes. It's in the letter, it's written out, and once they do call, we do give them that follow-up information. So the criteria in order to qualify for a co-sponsorship event, they must meet one of the following criteria. So first and foremost, they have to be a Corona-based nonprofit or government agency, or have a local branch within the city of Corona, or have an affiliation with the city. Per the policy, they must meet at least one or more of the following criteria. So they need to promote Corona as a desirable place to live, visit, and or do business, promote Corona as a destination and or encourage tourism, enhance the quality of life and well-being,
advance pride in a multicultural community, encourage a neighborhood identity and pride, and or promote cultural or artistic awareness. Now, this program is not to be confused with the new community-based organization, or the CBO grant, that's new for 2022. So a little bit about that. It's a temporary funding program from the American Rescue Plan Act, which provides grant funding from the years 2022 all the way through 2024. So it's only temporary to nonprofit agencies that were affected by the pandemic. These agencies must provide social services to Corona residents that meet both continuing and new and emerging needs throughout our community. So up here, you're going to see all the compiled list of all the returning requests for fiscal year 2023. So up here, you're going to see that there are a couple dashes in there, which are non-monetary costs that they have requested. So like I said earlier, they generally are just requesting to use a city logo or share the event on our marketing media platforms, including our Corona Connection, Inner Circle, and or social media platforms. With these events, after they are approved, we go ahead and add them to the city calendar on the website so that all of our residents know what's going on here in Corona and kind of plan if they want to go out or what to do for the weekend. They can look on there and they can see what exactly the program is. We add any details on there and how to contact that specific group since we are not the actual hosts of the event, but we can connect them with the correct individuals. This next slide is going to be all the new requests for fiscal year 2023. So we received a good chunk of them this time. It's pretty nice to see that the community does want to add more events for the residents. So the first one up there is going to be the Erencia Mariachi Academy, which is hoping to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month with their annual mariachi concert where students from all levels get to showcase what they have learned throughout the program. So that one, they're hoping to do it here on the South Lawn and have a stage, food vendors, just have community come out and just watch what these kids have done, and it's a perfect way to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month. The second one's going to be the Circle City Corral, which they already have their Broadway concerts as a co-sponsorship, but they're hoping to add this new program, which basically they're opening up the rehearsals and curating a specialized vocal workshop series for both children and adults in our community. So this program teaches participants the fundamentals of music, proper breathing techniques, stage presence, all things of that, just so that they can be ready to go into shows. That one, they're hoping to do it over at the Circle City Center or here in the auditorium if permitting allows.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
What is for the crowd?
Mm-hmm.
How are they spending $850 on a permit?
So that is for the room costs. So they're requesting co-sponsorship for the permit use of the individual room that they're going to be using for these workshops.
Just the rental fee.
The rental fees,
How much
yes.
time they're renting the facility.
With $1,000 we were gonna spend for her?
So why does it cost so much? It's just a room.
So the rental fee, so this one, they're actually hoping to do it on Monday. So it's going to be, it goes on for, I want to say it's 4 to 5 weeks. And so with each reservation, there is a fee associated to it.
So it's more than one time.
Correct, yeah, it's not just a one-time, it's for the entire workshop series.
So it's like
That's the
five
room rental.
times,
Correct.
It's 175 a time.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
The next is going to be our regular community partners, which are the Lila Project. So they actually have requested 2 new events for this year. The first one is going to be their 3rd annual Toys and Tacos Holiday Toy Drive event, which they're hoping to take place in the City Hall parking lot. And so this drive-thru event typically collects between 500 to 1,000 toys while celebrating the holiday season with food, beverages, entertainment, resources for the community. And the second one that they are requesting is going to be the Barbers and Backpacks event, which it's their 5th annual block party, which the mission of this event is to serve local families in need within our community by providing resources, school supplies, and entertainment, just a good time all around for the families that are in attendance of this event.
I have another question.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Of course.
So these are all great events, right? So if the city's gonna do the in-kind stuff, which is cool, very cool, can the city also promote it on their social media?
We do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is part of the co-sponsorship program. We do put it in our, the Inner Circle. We'll go ahead and post it on there as it's upcoming. We'll do social media pushes, we'll add it to our calendar, and then in our quarterly Corona Connection, we do add it as part of the community events.
Very cool, thank you.
Of course.
Is this a complete list?
So these are just the new ones that came in.
The old and the
Yes,
new
yeah,
ones?
combined, that's all of them that we have requested for this year. The last one's gonna be Charlie's Cause, which is a nonprofit that brings awareness to pedestrian safety. So as a first-time offering, they are looking to host a walk around the Grand Circle and end with a breakfast and activity area over at City Park. They think this is going to be a fantastic location as it's easily accessible and anyone who's driving down the street can see what's happening and stop by and enjoy a good time with the kids.
You're gonna walk the whole circle?
They are, yes.
Good luck.
So in
Take the ranger with you.
In total, it would be about $21,260 in requested support for the fiscal year 2023 for all the co-sponsored events that have been requested here today. So once again, the ask here is that the Committee of the Whole review and consider the fiscal year 2023 co-sponsorship events and direct staff to bring this item back to City Council for approval as part of the proposed budget. And that is my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you, sir. Do we go to questions first, or do we go to communication from the public?
I think it's, take any questions here and then go to the public.
Okay. Do you have any questions from my colleagues?
I think it's great.
At the appropriate time for questions?
That was the appropriate time. Great presentation,
Thank you.
Jose. Now that it's my turn to ask questions. Anything our city can do to help nonprofits is valuable.
Great presentation, Jose. My only question is, compared to this fiscal year, are we having more folks apply, more organizations apply, or fewer, or where are we at?
We've seen more apply this time around. In the past, it was handled by management services. As of recently, it got passed down to community services. So I've been working very closely with Naomi, basically to handle this entire program, but we have seen an influx of it. There are a couple events that didn't come back just because they found other places as they've outgrown their events, so they've gone to other locations for those events.
Ms. Newant? Questions, comments? Ms. Wentworth?
It's a great presentation. It's great to see this be handled in a different way than it's been handled in the past. For those of you that are aware, this is very good, the way this is going down right now. And hopefully this will grow, and the more the community gets aware that this is something that they can take advantage of, the more diversity we will see in your programming.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards?
Vice Mayor, no, I do not.
Okay, this time do we need to take a vote?
Just looking for general direction, as long as everybody's okay with this, then,
Great job.
then
Okay.
we're, excellent, all we need, thank you.
Good vote.
Everybody? 4 thumbs up.
Thank you.
Let's do it, Cal.
Keep Wes out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I should have been like this. Sorry, Jess. Store decided it out with the cut.
Mr. Jacob.
Because I was hiding by the door now. I was coming out.
It's something like walking into a door and.
Are you saying I'm a door? What are you trying to say?
Walking through a door and seeing you.
Okay, so we're on to our last item. No, sorry, second to last. So, we just skip right past you, number 1. You said you wanted to go last. No, okay. Okay, so we're recommended revisions to the Coronal Municipal Code for park use. Ann Turner, Community Services Director, please present the report.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for having me here today. I wanted to bring this to you for consideration, and it's sort of turning into the Community Services show this afternoon, so we're excited to share this with you. See if I can get my clicker to work. There we go. So the ask before you is to consider some proposed changes to the municipal code and direct staff to bring them back to the City Council for approval. And before we start delving into this, I really want to make it clear that we are bringing this proposition to you, explaining to you where our issue is, but this is not asking you to change the municipal code today. What it is asking you for is to hear where our issue is, hear where we've worked with our legal department to try to answer that issue, and then direct us to bring it to the City Council. When we do bring it to you for a City Council approval, you will get a fully redlined version of the municipal code, so you'll know exactly where the municipal code stands now and exactly the changes that we're making. This is a conceptual conversation about whether or not we should move forward. Please. There we go. So, the Corona Municipal Code, Chapter 12.24, and that's really important. It's not the full chapter, it is this component of the chapter. So it's 12.24 establishes rules and regulations for the use of public parks, recreation buildings, facilities, amenities, and equipment. The Park Ranger Program, which was reinstated in 2021, is a key component of why we're bringing this to you. So our park rangers are duly tasked with education and enforcement to maintain harmony within our local parks. At this point, we are challenged with being able to cite people for the behavior that we don't want to see in parks because we don't have the exact language we need in the municipal code. So this is really asking you to give us the tools we need to be successful to stop that nefarious activity that we were talking about in the parks.
Is nefarious the word of the day in this thing?
It's the word of the day.
Nefarious is the word of the day.
I like rogue use.
We got rogue use, we got nefarious, we got harmony, we've got it all today in this presentation.
The thesaurus was worked well today.
Nefarious?
Nefarious, rogue.
All right, bifurcate the conversation, let's go.
Oh, throwback.
It's all coming out today. So our current challenges, are road use. So this is use without a permit, and this is particularly applicable to traveling sports teams. So if you're unaware, there are many sports teams that drive around in cities looking for open space, and they see a field that's not being used. They set up, they start playing on it, they start practicing on it, and then that field has been allocated by our field staff to ASO. And so then they show up for their regular practice and somebody's on their field. And then a park ranger needs to negotiate that conflict. We also have folks who are using particularly our tennis courts for commercial enterprise. So they are using our public tennis courts and they are collecting a fee as a tennis instructor, and they're also monopolizing those courts so that residents who want to come and play and do a pickup game are not able to do that. And then, of course, we have unsanctioned events or services. We have some health concerns that we'd like to address in the municipal code. So while we love our dogs in our parks and we love them to be on leash, we don't really like them to be in the playground areas because when they go to the bathroom in those playground areas, there's usually small children, and small children put a lot of things in their mouth, and we feel like that's really a health concern. So I don't know how to say that better than that.
I can give you an idea.
Well, not just children.
And then we have the for-profit use of our parks. So this is businesses, particularly boot camp businesses. This has been a big thing. So I have my boot camp business. I'm saying we're going to meet at Santana Park. Again, I'm making money off of my boot camp business using this public space that then is not available for the use by the public. And our park rangers have been unable to address some of these challenges because we don't have the very specific language we need in the municipal code to be able to cite people for this. So we've been educating, but if we really wanted to cite, we just don't have the right language to do that. So what is our proposed solution? We're saying we need to revise the Corona Municipal Code, Chapter 12.24, to better reflect residents' needs and expectations regarding park use. We need to add clarity to older language, and we need a means to provide a citation if challenges persist. And please understand that the first thing and our intention with the Park Ranger program is always education first. Always education. Always trying to create that harmony in the park. Staff has researched the code language from several different cities to identify options to address these challenges, and our legal team has reviewed the proposed edits and provided some sample language for consideration. So what we've changed with organized group and athletic event, what you see in red is what we would like to add, which is that very specific language. So a group of 8 or more persons using a public park, recreation buildings, facilities, or amenities for a planned or scheduled sport or athletic event, including without limitation, practicing, conducting drills, camps, games, scrimmages, coordinated, structured activity. The term organized group athletic event shall not include any type of for-profit activity, class, program, or lesson provided or led by an instructor. So that is the key point there.
Did you come up with that language, Ann?
I did not. I did not. That language is actually provided to us in conjunction with our legal department. So we work very closely with the city attorney. We provided some sample language that we found from other cities, and the city attorney worked with that language and saw what would be fitting in our municipal code. So what we've added here for the sale of good and for-profit activities is that we said the sale of goods, and you'll see in red the for-profit activities. I don't need to read the whole piece to you, but this goes back to the discussion that we were having, that we want to make sure that people are not using our public spaces and our public parks to make money for themselves.
Did we skip animals, Ann?
Did we skip something?
Did we skip animals? I'm so sorry. There we go. The clicker is not my friend. So this one, again, talks about we're creating references within the municipal code to proper chapters and sections in other parts of the municipal code, so it's easier to cite, so we don't have to cite all of the areas of the municipal code, but we can use this chapter 12.24030, and it covers all of that and has the proper reference to those areas of the municipal code. But what you'll notice here is that public park that is designed or intended as a play area for children, including without limitation tot lots and any area where play equipment is located, as well as the area underlying and surrounding such play equipment that contains sand, wood chip, rubber mulch, or similar materials.
So that's a Dean sentence all day long. Good job, Dean.
He's watching.
Or
in his
Jamie.
office right now.
Thank you, I guess.
And now I'm not going to be able to click. There we go. And so we've discussed this. This is the sale or for-profit activities. Permits required. So this is a piece where we are going to obviously go with education first. I thought Moses's example was a great example. We want to come up, and if somebody's got a bouncy house and a taco man and they don't have a permit and they don't understand about the permit, we want to help them have a successful and harmonious day in the park. As long as they're not conflicting with anybody else, that is not a problem. We need them to take down the bouncy house, and we need them to take down anything that we don't have insurance for, or that we don't know, because that's a liability for us for the city. And then we want to educate them about the permit process. And so I thought that was a great story, sort of illustrating what this is. This is the ability for our park rangers, when they come up to somebody and say, hey, do you have a permit? And they say, no, I don't have a permit. And they say, okay, well, we need you to do this, this, and this. And they say, you know what, go pound sand. That's an opportunity for them to say, we'd really like to help you understand you need to have a permit, da, 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 da. And then if it becomes a conflict, or it begins to escalate, they have the ability to create that citation.
Good.
So what is the financial impact? There's really no significant financial impact anticipated with this change to the municipal code. Our park rangers will be tasked with education before enforcement, and any revenue generated from the citation will just go right back into the general fund. We won't have a separate area for that. So what are the benefits of this revision? So for athletic groups, it allows greater enforcement on that rogue use. It strengthens the relationship with the existing leagues and our known users. I mean, they get to have that relationship with the rangers, and they also feel that if they've gone through the process, which sometimes can be arduous, of getting fields allocated to them, that when they go to use those fields that are allocated to them, and they have done all the rules and they have gone through the process, that field will be ready for them and ready for their use. And we need to be able to deliver on that promise to our sports teams. For animals, obviously, it helps maintain hygienic surfaces in areas where children play. It does not ban leash dogs from the community or the park space. We love our dogs in our parks. We're just asking for them to be considerate of where children play. And then the for-profit activities, it's gonna limit the instructors and the unsanctioned use. Particularly, we get a lot of feedback around tennis courts and tennis lessons. And it gives greater resident access to public amenities, encouraging public use and passive recreation. And then permits required. It helps us remain, create a harmony throughout our parks so that we make sure that the uses that are going on in the park are complementary to one another and not in conflict with one another. And so knowing who's gonna be in the park and knowing how we can help make that happen also allows us to identify passive spaces for people who just came today with a pizza and wanna sit down and just have a nice time in the park. We know what's available and what isn't available, and that would be available for our rangers on their iPads, so they can immediately check if something's available or if it is reserved via permit. And it encourages larger groups and service providers to work through the city so that we can have that streamline everybody, that same equitable access to our parks. And then permits are subject to availability and not offered for all requests. So we want to be really honest about that. There's some things that people want to do in our parks that just are not in line with what we do in our parks, and we can help them find the venue that is right for them. So the commission feedback, we did talk to the commission last night about these changes and let them know that we were bringing them to you today. And we got all positive feedback. None of the commissioners had any particular questions about this. And so what are your options today? Obviously, you can say, you know what? We definitely don't want to change the municipal code. We want to keep everything just exactly as it is. Or you can say, we think you should go ahead and propose this revision to the municipal code for all of the areas that you've outlined, and we'd like you to bring that to a city council meeting for our consideration. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ready. Ms. Nealon, do you wanna, or Jim, you wanna start?
Yeah, I'll start. Well, I definitely want to give you the tools that you need to make sure our parks are being used the way we all want. I would have thought this would have first gone through Parks and Rec to get vetted before coming to us. And then between all of you, you would have come up with your best recommendation to council. Is there, how come we didn't do that? I'm just curious.
So we did bring this to Parks and Rec
Oh,
last
okay, I
night.
thought it said it's going.
No, that was last night.
Published
Oh,
before
okay.
the meeting.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Oh, it was.
I couldn't say that it happened because.
No, that's, okay, good. Okay, so
Thank you.
we're good with that. Okay.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
can talk more about that.
So I have a question. So if boot camp moms show up and they do their 5 laps pushing the strollers around the park, and then they decide to go into a grass area and stretch and do yoga or something, are we gonna crack down on that?
No, that's,
Okay.
if they choose to do that together, so if there's like a mommy and me class or a group of moms that want to do exercise together, we're all about that. That's
But if
exactly
someone has a
how.
reservation, then we'll kick them off and say, that
Well,
area.
not even that. If I, Ann Turner, decide that I'm gonna get a group of moms together and each of them are gonna pay me $50 to organize this, walk around the park and stretching, that's me making money off of you doing that.
A lot.
And that is my personal business. I'm Ann Turner, boot camp trainer. And that's very different from a group of people who want to get together and exercise together. And even if somebody is leading that, they can lead that for them or facilitate for them. But it's when the exchange of money happens. So it's my business as a personal trainer to do boot camp, and I'm doing it at Santana Park, and I am not permitted, I have no permit to do that, and I'm running this boot camp and I'm making a bunch of money using your public space as my classroom. That's where we have a problem. We can, ideally, we never want to ask anybody to leave the park. So I think what we would do in that situation is talk to them about like, hey, if you're really interested in doing a boot camp class, let's work together. Why don't you become one of our contract instructors and let the city offer this boot camp class in Santana Park? Let's work together and see how that works.
I'm cool as long as it went through the Parks and Rec, I'm good. Anything else said?
I wish they had yoga with goats.
They have that at Bedford.
Do they?
Yeah. In fact, I
City
think it's
Park?
tonight.
Goat yoga?
Yeah, they have goat yoga.
I expect to see you there.
I'm sure I could get you in, I can get you in.
I'm gonna try goat yoga one of these days. Yeah, great presentation as usual. I got a list here. First and foremost, I need to thank Herman for, and he's probably watching this, taking the time to writing in and voicing his concerns. And I hope after watching this presentation, those concerns have been resolved. Next, good use of the word road use, as we pointed out. And then I feel the person before you didn't involve the Parks Commission as much, and now that you do, that's a lot of value to us, because, I mean, you got 5 all-stars on that commission, so, and they're valuable. And then I think option number 2 is just common sense. So you're just updating a code that probably should have been updated a long time ago. And the reason it's before us now is because you have people that are actually more in tune to the city, trying to make the city better. So it's actually very impressive to see this presentation. It's saying people are making things better, so I'm all for number 2.
Thank you.
I wanted to piggyback off the conversation you were just having about for-profit use of the park. Because we're always trying to think creatively about economic development. And we know that, small in-home business startups can sometimes lead to bigger businesses. And so, what I heard you say is that if someone wants to conduct business in one of our parks, there is an avenue to do so. They can partner with staff and then become a contract provider. Is there any other way to, for instance, if someone wants to do yoga, but they have, it's exclusive, right? They don't necessarily want to put it on the Coronal magazine. Can they book, the lawn, corner section of the lawn and Park Y, for the next, umpteenth Saturdays in a row? Can they, if they pay a fee, can they book it and not be added in the Corona magazine?
So I think it depends on where they want to have that. Ideally, we would want to talk with that person and see if we could find the right fit for them. In that case, I would really prefer them to do an indoor facility rental, so using one of our exercise room spaces at the community center versus being in a park, because I think it creates some perception confusion for people to have, a class going on. We can absolutely let them have that rental, but it's a matter of making that relationship, talking with them, finding out what we can do and finding the best way to serve them. But the deal for us is to make sure that we are lowering those barriers and creating access for everyone. We hate to have exclusive things going on in our parks, because really the park should invite everyone in.
Absolutely, 110%. And, if it's between, the public having access to a tennis court, or, the public should always have access. So, but I don't want us to shut down an opportunity where maybe one of our residents is getting creative and starting a business. And
I think they can still use the space, it just depends on whether there's other demand for it as well. So as long as there's not demand there, they can actually take advantage of using that space and rent it. It's when it gets to be exclusive and they're always there, and somebody else wants to come in that we have a conflict, then we go back to the code and say, well, okay, we have to be able to share this space, and maybe we'll find some other accommodations or other times that you can be that.
So we're gonna have like a personal conversation with folks, because we do know what uses are being used a lot, which is the tennis courts and the boot camp things. That's what we're seeing.
And that's the beauty of the park ranger program, is building that relationship, being that first hand that says, hey, you've been here and, we've seen you here a couple of times, do you have a permit? Can we talk to you about how to get a permit? How can we work with you? Can we get you in touch with our programs and reservations folks? What's the best way for us to serve you and help you be successful?
Well, and you can bring balance too. So if you have a tennis instructor who's charging and he's taking up 5 to 6 courts, you can say, hey dude,
It's not if, it is.
How many courts, dear? In one place.
If you had a certain number of courts.
So we're doing, it's case by case, and there's okay. I also wanted to thank Herman for his email, and I know you read it, and I want us to just be very conscious when it comes before us and it's a red line item that, whether between you and Dean, that, we're taking the steps necessary to protect spontaneous play, so that there's never like a gray area where if someone plays a pickup game with their friends every Saturday morning, that's not suddenly considered, an organized game.
I
That's
want to
no
be
longer
really
allowed.
clear about that. We want spontaneous play. That is absolutely what parks are for. That's why I got into this profession, was to create safe spaces for people to play and to discover how to bond with each other in a safe environment. We would never want to discourage spontaneous play.
Wonderful, thank you. And then my last question for you is, do we have a sense of when we might see the tool for online booking of spaces?
All I can say is that we're working on it and no.
Okay, well, we're working on it.
We are very diligently, I get reminded all the time that it needs to be faster, and we're doing our
We're
very
working on
best to get it done.
Thank you.
It's
That's
in
it
the
for me.
pipeline.
Vice Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Dr. Turner. This is definitely your ballywick. It is not mine, so I appreciate.
I haven't heard that word.
Oh,
Oh, we need a.
apparently you guys need to read a dictionary every once in a while.
I thought it was bailiwick.
This is definitely not mine. There is a growing recreation out there that's for dads in the parks and just hanging out and getting away. So I'm glad that we will be exploring those options. I actually have a friend that has one of those mom groups that gets together to exercise, and I had a conversation with her. She's actually in Eastvale, so it's not a Corona issue. But it was interesting because they're not usually utilizing fields like a soccer field or a baseball field. They're looking for out of the corner areas that they can, kind of get together and do their thing. So, you guys asked a lot of the questions, and it sounds to me like it's not out of the realm of possibility. It just needs to have a conversation and kind of figure something out. So I definitely appreciate that because I do know that there are a few of those out there and that they are they're pretty valuable. Those are good groups that they get together and they do their thing. So I definitely appreciate it, and see you soon enough with this. Thank you.
Connie, do you have any questions? Chair Wentworth.
I just want to say that the staff has spent years laying the groundwork for these municipal code changes. And it's come through what they've developed for the process of reservations, for field use, the ranger program. Everything has led you to this point that the commission feels confident that the proposed changes reflect the proper use, so that we're not putting the cart before the horse sort of thing, like coming up with the laws, but then we don't really have anything in place to make it happen. Everything is there for the leagues and everybody to fairly get access and do the reservations properly, that Jackie and I aren't competing against each other in a strange meeting, that we can't get our field access because she wants this basketball court and I want that one. That isn't happening. All that's gone. We're able to provide the community the use that they need and use the resources that we have in the city and do it equitably. So they all have a chance to do it. And to your point of spontaneous play, so like a great example is Border Park. We put in the pickleball courts, and it is just a known fact that if you show up there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday morning, there's going to be a whole group of people there playing. That's not discouraged. There's even going to be someone there giving instruction for no money to new people that want to learn how to play. So they are teaching them the games for a couple hours on Saturday morning so they can turn around and go play with the other people on Monday, right? So that's not what the ranger's going to step in and say, you can't do this. This is just spontaneous play. Different people show up different days all the time. So that's the kind of usage that they're promoting. What they're trying to get away from is when you drive by Jameson Park and you see the private trainer there with his 2 clients and a little sign for no number to call me so that you can come do this with me. And that's unpermitted use. That's a huge difference than spontaneous play at the tennis courts where my girlfriends go and play the same time every week, at Eagle Glen and that kind of thing. So I think that they fully laid the foundation for you to get there, and you should feel confident that these municipal code changes are what is needed to follow through and promote the programming.
Great, thank you. You guys asked a lot of my questions, I think, and thank you. I asked a lot of questions beforehand. You guys got them to me, so that's great. I want to reiterate that point about for-profit businesses using the park. And I think that, you know, Dr. Turner, you told me, God, months and months ago, where we don't want to create this exclusionary part. If you go to the park, you should be able to play, you should be able to go and participate, or have the ability to participate. You shouldn't have to pay to do it. I get the sports league and everything else, but, you know, we have groups that are, you know, the most famous one, of the one that we get the most pressure from is the tennis coaches, because there is such a limited resource. I don't know how many complaints that I get, you know, on a weekly basis about that, you know, they go to the courts and they've got these things taken up. So I'm so glad to see that, you know, that we have a process now, we have a ranger program, we have a way to enforce this piece. And I do think having a, you know, if someone wants to do a startup, the city's been super welcoming. I know a bunch of people that have pursued teaching classes through the city, and they've used it to build or to augment an already existing business, that they're doing contract classes to the city, and they're using it to build their business in order to open up a location. But I don't think it's fair that if you're basically using our fields or using the park, a public space, to make money, and basically to you know, make your bottom line better, because, you know, maybe the other group doesn't have a chance to do that. And I've seen it before too. I lived by Houston Park, and there was a guy that's been doing it for years. He would pop up there and walk the neighborhood, and he would basically make a bunch of noise, and people would come down and go, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm teaching kids." And you paid to have your kids go to school, or go to class there. And I agree, 100%. That's not what our parks are for. So fully in favor of the option number 2. I think that was unanimous, right? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Ms. Edwards, do we have any comments?
We don't have any speaker cards, but we did receive 2 emails from resident Herman Mayfarth, and the comments will be filed for the meeting minutes.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, last but certainly not least.
So this is Pigs Gone Wild?
We're gonna have a wild pig update. We have Captain Paul Mercado, Coronal Police Captain, I just said that, and Moses Cortez, our Facilities, Parks, and Trails Manager,
We are in jail right now.
will present a report.
What is going on?
Come on in.
I gotta sit next to you.
Can't wait to talk about wild pigs. I have many opinions.
Daniel, I got an extra seat over here if you wanna come up, brother.
Underneath us.
Yeah, come on in. Jim only bites on Wednesdays. Oh, dang.
You guys are at the edge of your chairs.
Listen, I'm ready. I'm born ready.
You saved the best for last year.
Yeah.
Right. So Moses and I are gonna tag team this presentation. Mike, ready to start, sir? Good. So the last time we were here, Chief Newman actually did the first presentation to the committee. And back in December. So
He said, "Tag, you're it."
Yeah, pretty much. He said I lucked out the first time, so. So when we go through this, our ask is gonna be that we provide feedback on recommendations to continue pig depredations and enhancements to the neighborhood and the security of our neighborhood. But just like I mentioned before, our first presentation was done back in December, right, of last year. And Chief Newman provided that presentation. And really what our takeaway from the committee was, how are we gonna engage our community, right? How are we gonna get that going? So staff immediately jumped on board and to come up with some solutions to make that happen. And I would like to publicly thank our supervisor, Animal Services Supervisor Daniel Pacheco, because he took the lead on this project. So Daniel, I want to publicly thank you for your efforts there. And so in short, what we want to do is bring some situational awareness, some education and resources to our communities that were impacted by the wild pig activity. So in that, what we did is we provided some outreach and distributed California Department of Fish and Wildlife materials to our community members. Provided a web link and wildlife incident reporting to the Animal Services website to ensure that literature is rapidly available at the animal shelter. And distribute pig literature via neighborhood walk, strong social media campaign, and messaging through city utility billing statements. And when we did the walk, members of council were out there, including some citizens or some volunteers. We had our cadets, we had animal services personnel out there, and again, there's some members of council. So this is kind of gives us a timeline as what we've been doing with this project. So back in December, we met with our trapping vendors. We did select a vendor, Heritage Custom Landscaping was the vendor we chose to go with. And so in January, we met with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we had that permit issued. So it allows us to do our trapping. In February, we held a lot of different meetings to discuss future collaborations with efforts with landowners in that particular area. And Army Corps engineer is one of them. Orange County Flood Control and Public Works is another. We did enter into an agreement at that same time, we entered an agreement with Heritage Custom Landscape for an agreement for $10,000, but to trap the pig at the $200 range per pig. As you can see that slide there, March and April was actually trapping time period. So the Heritage Custom Landscaping vendor was out there and all these traps were set at the same location. And as you can see the numbers there, the first trapping was very fruitful and far exceeded our expectations when it comes to trapping. We're anticipating about 10 trapping just based on the time period. And according to expert, there's going to be less pig activity during this time, but again, far exceeded our expectations. So trapping is at 29, second trapping at 2, and the third trapping at 1.
And I'm not surprised. They are smart.
Right.
So whenever we do trapping especially for mammals or for there's highly intelligent birds, you can't put the trap in the same place twice.
Right.
Because they go, nope, we already saw what happened there, we're not going back.
Absolutely. One of the biologists, one of the experts that we met with did state that. So that's why the next slide, the future, what does it look like in the future? So we thought maybe simultaneously, just so what you had just mentioned, by simultaneous traveling in different locations, we'd probably be a better run for the next time. But we did meet with the Army Corps engineer. They're the most active, partners in this project. But they're a federal entity, so there are some rules, some regulations, red tape that they have to get through. But they do recognize the problem. They do recognize the issue, and so they have committed to budget cycle 2024 to make it a budget item. But that doesn't help us. That's a long-term solution.
Yeah.
But we're kind of looking for what's the short term? What does that look like? So they said about some in-kind services, maybe up to $10,000 that they should be able to partner with us long-term. Nothing's been finalized, but those are the discussions that are ongoing. Then, as you guys know, the red tape comes in where they have to do site walks, they have to do studies, because there's some endangered species that live in this particular area. And so with the nesting season, they're kind of just cautious about, hey, you guys need to have a heads up if you're gonna come on our land. There is nesting season, and it's from March through August. So we gotta have that in the back of our mind as we move forward. So we gotta worry about those environmental impacts and what it's gonna do to endangered species moving forward. The second of that is evaluate. We really want to evaluate simultaneous trapping needs, and then really hardening maybe some fences, some hard barriers that would help mitigate pigs coming into our neighborhood and to our communities out there. And that's where Moses can go ahead and let you know what that looks like.
Thank you. So we did evaluate some areas and where we targeted some areas that we felt we were seeing the impacts of the pigs entering the neighborhoods. This was based off reports that we were getting of neighbors reporting damage to their yards. So Paul and I went out and evaluated some of these areas. So currently there's fencing on Bedoin. That's that top slide picture there. And it's about a 4-foot tall fence, slatted, so that does protect a barrier. And we weren't seeing any impacts in this particular area off of Corridon. But then you get a little further over, about a block over to Myrtle, Noah Circle, and then off Stagecoach Road. That's where we're seeing the impacts to the neighborhood. So our thought was to put some prevention and long-term deterrence would be to invest in some of these fencing. And we took the numbers. We basically just took the length and we went off an RFP that we had done with one of our fencing contractors. So the installation off Myrtle and Hedges is approximately 180 feet and it runs about $8,600. The Noah and Hedges is about 80 feet and that would be $3,800 approximately. And then our biggest section is right across the street from Stagecoach Park. And that is about 646 feet, which is going to run us about $31,000 to install. It is powder-coated fence, so it will last. So it is a long-term investment that will help deter the pig intrusion into the neighborhoods.
So really quick, Moses, before I go on, you sent me a map of the areas.
Yeah.
And Myrtle sounds like, Hedges and Myrtle sound great, because there's some definitive edges, there's some definitive open spaces where pigs can come in.
Yeah.
And then if they're gonna train again, they have to go way far away.
Yeah.
I think the same with Noah, and those are no-brainers. There was a spot on Noah when we were walking that there's a spot, looks like the piglets were getting underneath one of the fences that had a low kind of spot. It was right at the corner of Noah and Amherst.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's something that we can look into, but I look at Stagecoach, and though it is a really large area, all they can do is walk around the edge. So unless you bring that, down Corridon or they're just gonna walk around it. So I don't know if I'm seeing 31,000 being why. I think the other ones are great. I think that they sound very useful, and it'll, I think, push pigs, at least from not going up there if they can't get in.
It is the biggest area.
But Stagecoach, I just see them just walking around Corridon.
Okay.
They would be walking up Corridon anyway, so
What's
they
your
would.
thoughts on that, though, Moses?
Yeah.
I mean, we were seeing them cross the street. If you go around into that neighborhood, there is fencing up on Big Springs right now. That's keeping them out of that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But they are coming out of there, from what we can tell, and getting into the neighborhoods. I know, we didn't get down into the Rincon and Corridon areas. We could look at that as potential, but I mean, it's just.
You're talking exponential.
Yeah, like where do
Where do you stop? Yeah.
fencing? Yeah.
And now we're going on places where, I don't know, maybe that's something that, I mean, I see that, okay, so if you were able to fence more, the problem is that when you have floods, you're gonna have debris pushing on it and everything else. So if you did any more down Corridon.
And it's definitely something that we could look at with the first two and come back a little bit later on as we continue to monitor the Stagecoach area and let you know how it goes and check it out later.
And the further in you get into the Corridon, Rincon area, that's going to be impacted at some point with the Alcoa Dyke project. So didn't want to get too far into there, but like Roger mentioned, we could explore the first two options and see if we're seeing results from that.
And maybe, Army Corps, when they revise that area, maybe that's something that they throw into their plans.
And the other deterrents that I've looked at, that I think maybe the Army Corps, if we had a conversation or we could look at, is placing boulders out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be fencing. There's some areas where you've seen they've put boulders along there. That kind of deters them
They're
as well.
not great climbers. Okay, great, thanks.
I think he's still got to go.
Yeah. I just wanted to, just before we jumped up.
Okay.
So that wraps up my presentation.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So now we're open for questions.
Yep.
So the recommendations, final slide here, evaluate the pig nuisance activity and trapping as necessary. And that would look like is, do we have any public safety concerns? Are we receiving citizen complaints about increased pig activity? That would actually trigger. some more pig trapping. We continue to work closely with our partners, with the local, state, and federal entities to go into long-term cost sharing agreements for future pig trapping and improved fencing, like Moses just covered, moving forward. As you know, that as currently right now, I think there's an 800 block of Big Spring. There is about 175 yards south of that location. There is a watering hole. Daniel and I were down there. And so it provides a food source for the pigs, so they're busy there right now. But as the climate heats up, the water source is gonna dry and it's gonna push the pigs into the neighborhoods. So that's what's with the experts, that's what they surmise it's going on. And it makes sense. We're down there looking at that. So we figure with spontaneous trapping, with some barriers, would help mitigate the pig activity in the neighborhood.
So if there's a drought that pushes the pigs towards the neighborhoods, and we're in a drought, right? So that's
Yes.
probably why in the last year or so it's kicked up more than normal.
Well, that and the construction.
What's that?
The construction, they took out a lot of habitat.
Oh, so when the construction happened, it shifted the pigs.
That's what the Army Corps of Engineer, they have actually a crew down there. The pigs are, according to them, are not afraid of humans, and they go up to their vehicles, go up to their trucks, and so they recognize the issue of being the pigs being a nuisance. And you're right, the construction does push them out.
Jim?
Yeah, I think we're definitely on the right track here. The trappings that we've already done has seemed to help. I haven't got a single complaint. I don't know if Tony has. It's his district, but they were communicating with me as well. Haven't heard one complaint yet. Have you? Have you been getting any complaints since
Animal
you did that?
Control has not received a call since maybe late July,
So that's
early
great.
August.
So it suggests that trapping was very effective. So because how quickly they reproduce, we should do periodic trapping based on best recommendations. So I think we should just plan on doing that. I've been for the fences all along. Wes brought up a good point though with Stagecoach. So I think those first hedges of myrtle and Noah hedges are good. Along with that one house on the corner that Wes was talking about where they can get under, you can just go put a cinder block on the other side. That issue's solved there. So the Army Corps and other property owners are not helping at all with any of these initial costs?
Not right now.
Okay, we really gotta push for that, I think. But either way, we gotta do something, and I think we're doing the incremental approach that is reasonable. So, good job.
Yeah, so the Army Corps is almost there with their in-kind services. They're capped at 10,000. That's their limit. And so, for future budget requests, so we can do these trappings, we did ask for an increase of 20,000.
But that first trapping, that was about 6,000, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they did help us with that?
No, they did not. Yeah.
No, you can't get a check that fast.
And we did, so that's on city leased property, so we didn't venture
Yeah.
off into Army Corps engineer
Yeah, no
property,
joke.
so.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Tom?
Jim was going down the right path, so the goal, what triggered all this was the citizens were having their lawns tore up. And it sounds like lately the lawns aren't being torn up, and that's what you're measuring, right? So I think there's been some success there, and you just ride the success. So if it kicks up again, which it will, then you just start following these measures. As far as the fence, it's this fence in the picture, right? It's the same fence, that black.
Similar type,
powder coated. I think it's a good looking fence, to be honest with you. And then, so I'm all for fences. And then, to Jacob, I'm assuming this is your doing. I really like that they put the ask up front in these presentations. It really helps set the tone for the way the way the rest of this goes, so. That's where I'm at. Good job, warden and officer, Captain Warden.
Just stop.
No,
I've been called a lot worse.
Check.
but I wanted to start by thanking you as well, and Daniel as well. Thank you very much for managing this. I think one of the reasons as well that we haven't heard as much from residents is that they're just happy that we're doing something about it. I mean, the fact that everyone recognizes that they're producing faster than we can trap them and get rid of them, but the fact that we're not just saying, oh, well, you know, we're actually trying,
Not someone else's problem.
it goes a long way. So, I want to, I agree with Mayor in the recommendation to maybe not fence Stagecoach, because it doesn't make sense. But to go back and, look at those streets when we were canvassing them, Noah really does have those gaps where it is that we can just fill in those little gaps, and the neighbors told us where it is, and you could spot them.
Yeah.
And to see how those fences look. And while you were talking, I went on our website, and you can just Google wild pigs. You know how we have that little, you know, on our City of Corona webpage, the search bar, and you end up landing on a very informative page where it tells you what to do with pigs, what not to do with pigs, stay away from them, and it gives you a number on where to contact, so I'm glad that we've updated that. So all in all, I'm hoping, if I'm reading this right, that the recommendation includes I think it was the second one, it's like continue to manage pig activity, that includes continuous trappings. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay, then I am all for the recommendation.
But you're not gonna trap until the pigs are up again, right? You're not trapping to trap.
Here's my, and then just really quick, the only
You're using
reason.
the expertise, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, 'cause I-
We would reach out to our subject matter experts out there.
Okay, perfect.
You're right, to facilitate that, yeah. And our complaints too, right? We gotta weigh both options.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's a totality to everything, not just one single event.
So I have a couple questions about the fencing. So on Boydon, Bowden and Wheaton,
If you can't say it, you
yeah,
can't
and
talk
then
about it.
Myrtle and Wheaton, there are driveway access points and there's just a gate.
Going.
So is that going to Bedoin?
Bedoin.
So how are we gonna fence around those gates? Because those gates are pathways right up.
So they're gonna install meshing on that, so, kinda like an expanded metal that'll be welded onto the gate, so it'll provide that same barrier, but the gate will still open for emergency access, fire access, whatever.
So, because I think also on the corner, Noah and Hedges, there's also another drive access that,
There's one on Noah Circle.
yeah,
One on Bedoin.
Yep.
And then one on, Myrtle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, the pigs could theoretically just walk right up there. And then, so as far as trapping goes, in that area that would be like the old golf course that you could access off of Bedoin, in that, Bedoin? Bedoin.
Say it 5 times fast.
Yeah. We had originally talked about trapping there, and there was some pushback because they said, well, when you trap them, they make noise. And I remember reading that once you have a trapping area, they don't go back. And as you can see by the trappings that we did, 29 the first time, 2 and then 1, well, they figured it out. So, are we gonna look at that area there in the old golf course area? That would be on the north side of Rincon, in that area, kind of where they're building the dike as far as the trapping area. And I asked that because that's a point of access from where these pigs are gonna walk up that road into those neighborhoods.
So yes, the answer to that is yes, we are looking at that particular area and just west of the airport, a couple, maybe 150 yards west of the airport, are other potential trapping locations. And that's what we used our drone, you guys know we have drones, so we have a drone team up there, flew the area and try to see where the pigs are migrating.
That's great.
So,
Perfect.
so we identified.
You saw them with the flare?
A couple, not as many as we hoped, but the trapping company actually did a scout and was able to track them down into a particular area. So you're right, so those particular areas are something, 2 locations we're looking at in the future.
I can just add too, just have faith in this trapping company. They're putting some time into, they just don't drop a trap that they know is not gonna produce.
Right.
Because they're getting paid by the pig.
They are legitimately scouting the areas and tracking the pigs to their sources. So now we're in, kind of restricted by where we can put the traps.
Yeah.
So we'll put them at the recommended places where we have access to, as needed, as we said.
Well, just as a reminder, I mean, this, in my RCA meeting, the state talked about this as far as moving legislation forward to really help out. So hopefully that brings some of our partners to the table with the expansion of the pig depredation and making it much easier to hunt little piggies, catch little piggies, and release them somewhere else.
No, we don't release them.
Well, they're
Depredation.
released to the meat processing. Yeah.
That's Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
Michelle?
I have nothing.
Okay. I wanted to reiterate, just because, you know, when this first came up, I went and talked to a couple different people that are experts in this and said, look, that trapping is the only way that you're gonna do any kind of real control. Hunting is okay, but you're never gonna do any real numbers to do it, so the trapping is really the only way. However, they reproduce so fast, and there's such a large area. Now, if you had a constrained area that you could, you know, funnel them in, then I would say that we have a pretty good chance of not eradicating them, but keeping them out of a position where we can't, or that we can control them. I think that the fencing is our best bet, because they reproduce so fast and they're so prolific, and they aren't afraid of people. They go where there's food. So right now they're staying away from the areas by Arbondale because there's no food. We've knocked everything down. There's not a lot of water over there. And all they're doing is they're just, you know, they're going into the, closer into the Prado Basin area. So, and it's almost like they know, because they're smart, you can't do any work in those areas between, you know, March and September, because there's 3 endangered species that live there. And, you know, they'll make their way back when it's time, just like, you know, somehow deer seem to know when hunting season is. They'll figure it out, but I do think there's an opportunity for us. I think we can, by doing some of this fencing and by doing trapping as needed. And to me, I don't think a regular trapping protocol is gonna be worth anything. I don't think you're gonna get probably pushback from the trapping folks. There are pigs in more areas than just that. I know that, you know, we've seen some in South Coronal off of Maine. I think a couple of big suckers, but there's water for them and other places for them to eat that are down in the riverbed. So I don't think you're going to see as many down there. But I do think that the key to this is really, especially partnering with the Army Corps, they're going to have projects going on in this area for years. And if we can get, as part of their contract, who talk to either the project manager or the contracting officer about that this needs to be placed into the contract, that pig management or working with us needs to be put in their contract, they'll just put it in, and it's easy. Getting something, even if they would probably triple that or quadruple it to whatever we needed, depending on what the ask is. But I think that's the best way. And we'll at least keep them off of people's, you know, lawns as much as we can. I think we're still gonna have issues, and they're not gonna go away, because they, you know, it's like picking up water with your fingers, so. Okay, Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards? All right, then with that, we will adjourn to our special meeting, and we'll see you in 2 seconds. Ready?